Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Joe Rogan, who used to have the #1 podcast on Spotify before being dethroned by the Duchess of Sussex herself, Meghan Markle. She's all about stealing thrones, is she? I don't know. Maybe she's not. Joe Rogan spoke with comedian Tim Dillon about Hollywood's hypocrisy on firearms during a recent episode of his podcast. That episode's now about 10, 12 days old. This from Fox News. Joe Rogan said to Tim Dillon, "Isn't it effing wild that Hollywood in general is very anti-gun, but they promote guns more than any other media on the planet? All their best movies, whether it's The Gray Man or whether you're watching The Terminal List or Mission Impossible, time out. Let's parse that sentence." Joe Rogan. All there, the there means Hollywood's, okay? All Hollywood's best movies, whether it's The Gray Man. Joe, if you think about Hollywood's best movies, the first movie you mention is The Gray Man. Half the audience right now is like, what's The Gray Man? This was the thing on Netflix with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, when the CIA's most skilled operative, whose true identity is known to none, accidentally uncovers dark agency secrets, a psychopathic former colleague puts a bounty on his head, setting off a global manhunt by international assassins. The Gray Man, which was the first thing that came to Joe Rogan's mind when he said the phrase, all their best movies, whether it's The Gray Man, ... The Gray Man has a 46% tomato meter rating on Rotten Tomatoes, although the audience is giving it a 90% score. So maybe Joe Rogan is man of the people. All their best movies, whether it's The Gray Man or whether you're watching The Terminal List or Mission Impossible. Random list, man. It's all guns save the day, guns kill aliens, guns kill werewolves. Guns kill everyone. Everyone bad gets killed by guns. But guns are bad and shouldn't have guns. It's crazy. Tim Dillon chimed in and called out wealthy Hollywood elites for numerous political hypocrisies and said, well, these are the same people that live in these 20,000 square foot homes and fly private jets but talk endlessly about climate change. I get it, because if they start paying you the kind of money they make to play pretend, they start paying you that kind of money to play dress up, $80 million a year, $40 million a year, you start to go crazy. Fox News writes, Dillon warned that Hollywood elites then develop this cognitive dissonance where you see yourself as something completely different than what other people see and your behavior as something that's completely different. The result is they don't view that as hypocrisy. They view it as like, yeah, guns are bad, but we can make them good. But literally, that's the way they think. Guns are not good, but in our hands, they're great because we can craft a narrative that makes them justified to have. Rogan said, it doesn't seem odd if you think about what they do. They make fake things, so of course they're fake. I'm still not over Joe Rogan listing the best movies in Hollywood and starting with The Gray Man. The Toledo Blade spoke to Nate Bargatze. He was talking about the title of his special, The Greatest Average American. Nate said, it started off as a joke, but I just have very average taste. Like if you did a poll on what the average American likes, which apparently is The Gray Man, I would be just that. Like my pant size is going to be the same. That's not true, Nate Bargatze. Time out. I was listening to Nate's podcast this morning on a run, and Nate was talking about how he has lost weight and he now fits into size 29 pants. That is not average, my friend. Have you seen the average American, including me? I haven't gotten into a 29 since I was like 16, bro. Like my pant size is going to be the same. The food I like, I do not really go one way or the other. Saying I'm the greatest average American, it's not really much of an accomplishment, but it's fun to say it that way. He compared to this tour to previous years. It's night and day. I was doing drive-ins. People would just sit in their cars and you couldn't hear anybody. Remember that? I forgot about that. Wow. It's not that long ago. That was such a weird time. The special was filmed outside. Everybody was wearing a mask and only like 100 people were allowed to be there. So the timing was kind of off. Being back in now reminds you how great it is to be together and hear the laughs. Just the sound of laughter adds to your set. With the rhythm and the timing of it all, the laughter makes it more full. I don't do crowd work or talk to the audience really, but energy is really important. There are times when you're up there and the crowd will be great, but we'll laugh quicker than some other crowds and you feel like, okay, I have to stay more on top of it because you can't really pause as long. And then there are other times like doing a weekday show as opposed to a Friday or a Saturday where it'll really feel like a Tuesday show. Everybody's in the middle of their week and there's not the extra release you might feel on a weekend. Timing is all kind of based on the crowd though, which is what makes it really interesting. Like, what am I going to get tonight? AL as in Alabama.com spoke to TJ Miller and they're like, hey, TJ, what's this movie you're pitching? TJ said, it's a Christmas movie. My buddy, he had an idea for a Christmas movie and his wife and my wife are friends. And his wife said, tell TJ about your movie idea. And I was like, ugh, it's going to be awful. And the next half hour of my life, I'm going to have to listen to this stupid idea and try to pretend it's good. Then he said, it's a Christmas movie. And I was like, oh, nobody has a good idea for a Christmas movie. They're impossible. Then he told me, and I was like, that's the greatest effing idea I've ever heard in my life. It's effing unbelievable. I can't believe it. And randomly, because my stand-up special that's dropping on September 29th, Time Out from Johnny Mac, that's the first I've heard of that special, unless I forgot that I told you about it 9 months ago. But apparently TJ Miller has a special coming out September 29th. I tried to find out where it's dropping so I could tell you. Didn't find anything. TJ said, I was editing that at the production company. I found out they're really trying to come up with an idea for a Christmas movie. And I was like, what? Shut the F up. And I said, I heard you're looking for a Christmas movie. And I told them the idea and told them it's not even my idea. It's my buddy's idea. And a famous director whose name was redacted was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. So we're going to go pitch it to him in LA. It's exciting. And that's a big step because it's a $100 million, $200 million movie. It's a huge, huge movie. And I would star in it, ideally. But I think the two famous movie director brothers, that's how it's redacted, think I'm a movie star. That's how they see me. I'd play a mall Santa, but not a bad Santa. TJ says, do you want to hear the idea, the elevator pitch? Don't put it on the internet. Miller told the writer the film's premise. The writer did not share it. Rats. But did comment it's original. He'd be a natural fit for it. All right, TJ, when was the last time you were nervous for a pitch meeting or something like that? TJ said, well, I was nervous for this interview. Just before this, I was looking in the mirror going, don't F this up. This is for AL.com. He's going to be wearing a Thin Lizzy hat, and he's probably a guitarist. The writer says, on my video call, my guitars are visible in the background. Don't F this up. But I never think like, I'm not going to go into this pitch and like freeze or F it up. I have the mentality of a stand-up comic where I just do this, and then it's going to work. So I don't really get nervous. Alrighty, Fringe is over and we're heading into Labor Day. So the next 2 weeks might be a little slower. Be curious to see if this Louis C.K. thing bubbles up. I'm actually recording this on Thursday so I can hang out at the beach all weekend. So for all I know is you're looking at the cover of the New York Post and Louis C.K. is on the cover and you're like, why isn't Johnny Mac talking about this? Johnny Mac likes the beach. Anyway, I'll be curious to see how these next 2 weeks go because it's traditionally a little bit of a slow point. But I've been planning for it. I put stuff away. I know what I'm doing here. Good news for me and Aunty Donna. Probably better news for Aunty Donna. They're getting a new series for Australian broadcaster ABC. Aunty Donna is a sketch troupe. They had a show on Netflix in the middle of the pandemic that I liked a lot. Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun, something like that. They also have a podcast called Aunty Donna. I like them a lot. They're very funny. This version of Aunty Donna will be a half-hour sitcom. Mark, Broden, and Zach will play three mates running a trendy cafe in one of Melbourne's laneways. I've actually been to Melbourne. So laneways are pedestrian streets between the main streets. So like say in your town, there was Apple Street and Banana Street. Between Apple Street and Banana Street would be Apple Street Lane, something like that. They all have the same name. So it's like street and then lane, street and then lane. Anyway, you might call it an alley, but alleys usually have garbage cans and stuff. These are much nicer. They'll play three mates running a trendy cafe in one of Melbourne's laneways. You should go to Melbourne. It's awesome. On my casual travel podcast, Travel is Back, I've actually recorded the Melbourne episode. It'll be out sometime late September, early October. I haven't slotted it yet, but it's recorded. Melbourne's fantastic. The show is called Aunty Donna's Untitled Project. I think that's actually the name of the show and not a working title because I often make that joke, but I think that's actually the title. It starts filming this week in Melbourne and will hit screens in 2023. I recently told you about Blake Pavey. He's the 20-year-old comedian with cystic fibrosis. That gives him a life expectancy of 45. He spoke to thenews.com and said, I don't think there's too much point in dwelling on it and doing the self-pity party about it. But I mean, I guess it's good to sort of stuff to use in material and stage. There's actually a lot of good things that come from it, you know, like having a midlife crisis in tandem with my own father. So that's something we can always bond over. That is both funny and wow, hurts. Blake joked that he doesn't have the financial freedom he'd like to have for a midlife crisis. He said, you're watching the movie where the bloke's going through his midlife crisis so we get a Ferrari or a Lambo, splash out on a boat. I can't do that sort of stuff. Best I could do, 2001 Toyota Camry that mom chipped in for. It's not a sexy car to drive around in, doesn't really scream out, this man's living on the edge. It just sort of politely announces that I'm not doing as well as I thought I would coming out of high school. And Chortle reports a comedian has lost 2 months' work after a violent heckler attacked him on stage and broke his leg. Simon Kane says he was left mentally scarred after a man in the audience sideswiped him at a pub. He told ITV, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't believe what happened. The heckler had proved problematic even before the show. He had to tell the heckler to stop messing around with the microphone. Then during the show, the man stood by the fruit machines heckling me. There are fruit machines in comedy clubs in the UK. Can somebody, if you're in the UK and you like comedy, well, you must like comedy if you're listening to me this deep into the podcast. Can you seriously hit me up on the social media? Twitter is at DCNPod, Facebook group Daily Comedy News. Fruit machines? Or is that code for something that I don't understand? Oh, I Googled it. British listeners right now are like, this yank is a dumb, and they probably use some like really dirty word with a C or something. The first thing I Googled UK fruit machines, and the first thing that came up are, why are slot machines called fruit machines in England? You see, I thought you had a machine in the back. I'm picturing like a cigarette machine and a candy machine, and next to it, there's like a thing that I could buy a banana from. No. Anglotopia tells us there's a reason for this fruit machines nonsense, because when they first came out, they weren't supposed to give you money. They were supposed to give you prizes. For example, if a player matched 3 lemons, you might receive a pack of lemon-flavored chewing gum or candies. Also, this same article on Anglotopia is showing me a graphic of a huge asteroid about to slam into the Earth with the headline, "It could strike an Earth 2026. Yes, I didn't misspeak. It could strike an Earth 2026. Should I click on it? No. Get back to the story. Anyway, so the jerk in the audience is standing by the fruit machine where you buy bananas for 50 cents or something. My version's funnier. The man stood by the fruit machines, heckling me. I gave him something back, so he sideswiped me, kicked my leg, and broke my tibia. I'd never been hit so hard in my life. The pain was excruciating. He was massive. He made Dolph Lundgren look like one of the 7 dwarves. I can't repeat the line I gave back to him. He feared for his safety so much that he drove 2 hours back to his Billingham home with a broken leg and crawled out of the car crying. He went to the hospital the next day. On Facebook, he posted, I'm a comedian. If you can't take a joke, enjoy for what it is, then don't come. This is causing myself and my wife and my kids financial difficulties as I won't be able to work for a foreseeable future, and also mental health stress. And he told ITV, my material's not for the easily offended. The guy was heckling, and if you heckle a comedian, you expect something back. But now I'm thinking, can I really go back and perform? That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you want to support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Daily Comedy News. You can throw $5 in the tip jar. I'll take your $5. I'll head to the comedy club. I'll put $5 in the fruit machine, and I'll get an apple and a banana. And if I got any leftover money, pineapple. See you tomorrow.